You used to be the one who replied within seconds, the one who stayed on the phone until 2 a.m., listening to problems that weren't yours, the one who showed up to every event, every favor, and every minor crisis, regardless of how exhausted you were. You thought you were being kind. You thought you were building bridges. You thought that by being infinitely available, you were becoming indispensable. And then, one day, without a grand announcement or a dramatic exit, you simply stopped. No explanation, no status update, just a quiet, deliberate withdrawal. You didn't become a ghost, but you became a shadow, harder to find, impossible to pin down. And suddenly, the world around you began to shift in ways you never expected. People who ignored your texts for days started checking in. People who took your advice for granted started seeking it with a newfound intensity. The respect you had been chasing for years through effort finally arrived through silence. But why? Why does the world only seem to value us when we are no longer there to be used? There is a profound psychological shift that occurs when you stop being emotionally available to everyone. This isn't about becoming cold, heartless, or bitter. It isn't a tactic to manipulate people into liking you. It is something much deeper. It is the realization that your soul has a limited amount of currency, and for years, you've been handing it out to anyone who passed by with an open hand. The truth is uncomfortable. Most people do not value what is always available. Think about the air you breathe. It is the most vital element of your existence. Yet how often do you stop to thank it? How often do you truly value it? Only when you are underwater. Only when the room becomes smoky. Only when it is taken away. When you are always available, you become like that air. You are a background utility. People rely on you, yes, but they don't see you. They don't respect the effort it takes to be you because you are a guaranteed constant. We often fear that if we step back, we will be forgotten. But psychology suggests the opposite. There is an unseen power in withdrawal. It is the power of the reserved self. Let's be honest with ourselves for a moment. Being always available usually wears the mask of kindness. But underneath that mask, it's often a form of self-neglect, or worse, a desperate need for external validation. You reply instantly because you don't want them to think you're rude. You listen endlessly because you're afraid of being selfish. But as you give your time, your attention, and your emotional labor away, something tragic happens. You start to disappear. Your identity becomes defined by what you do for others, rather than who you are. You become a mirror, reflecting everyone else's needs while your own light grows dim. Eventually, people stop expecting you. They simply expect the service you provide. And when something is always there, it loses its edges. It loses its definition. It becomes invisible. You aren't being good by being constantly available. You are training people to treat you as a commodity rather than a human being. We need to redefine how we view our presence. Your energy is your real currency, not your time. Time is external. It's a clock on a wall. You can sit in a room with someone for 3 hours and feel nothing. But energy? Energy is internal. It is the literal life force you use to process emotions, solve problems, and connect with the world. Have you ever had a 5-minute conversation that left you feeling like you hadn't slept in days? That wasn't a loss of time. It was a leak in your energy. When you are emotionally available to everyone, you are living with 1,000 tiny punctures in your spirit. Conversation by conversation, text by text, favor by favor, you are leaking. You feel exhausted at the end of the day, not because you worked hard, but because you let everyone reach inside you and take a piece. You cannot pour from an empty cup, yet we spend our lives trying to keep everyone else hydrated while we die of thirst. The great analytical psychologist Carl Jung understood the mechanics of the human spirit better than almost anyone. He believed that what we withhold or withdraw from the external world doesn't simply vanish, it transforms. Jung suggested that when we stop pouring all of our energy outward into the lives and dramas of others, that energy has nowhere to go but inward. It begins to illuminate the dark corners of our own psyche, our shadow. This is where true psychological power is born. When you stop reacting to every ping on your phone or every demand for your attention, you begin to observe. Think about the last time you were in a heated social situation. Usually, you would jump in to fix it, to mediate, or to defend yourself. But what happens if you stay silent? What happens if you simply watch? The less you react, the more you see. You see the insecurities of the person shouting. You see the manipulation in the innocent comment. You see the dynamics of the room with a clarity that was impossible when you were part of the noise. Observation is the precursor to control, and you cannot observe if you are busy being available. There is always a specific moment when the shift happens. It's usually a quiet Tuesday afternoon, or perhaps a lonely Sunday night. You're looking at a message on your screen, someone asking for something they could easily do themselves, or someone dumping their third drama of the week on you, and you feel a sudden, cold clarity. I give too much. From that moment on, the world looks different. You don't reply immediately, not because you're playing a game, but because you genuinely have something better to do. You are tending to yourself. You stop explaining your no. You stop chasing people who only remember you when they need something. And then, the social paradox begins. As you pull back, people start gravitating toward you, not because you've become a different person, but because you have regained your gravity. By becoming less available, you have signaled that your time and energy have a price. You have moved from being common to being rare. Our culture is terrified of silence. We are taught to fill every gap with words, notifications, and checking in. We feel a phantom itch if our phone doesn't buzz for an hour. But silence is a vacuum, and nature abhors a vacuum. When you create silence by withdrawing your constant availability, you create a space that others feel compelled to fill. In that space, people finally begin to feel your absence. They start to wonder. They start to reflect on what you actually brought to their lives. Presence is a physical reality, but its value is only realized in its absence. You cannot appreciate the sun if it never sets. By staying in the sky 24/7, you don't become the light of someone's life. You become the glare they try to shield their eyes from. Silence is the boundary that allows your presence to mean something again. As you begin to set these boundaries, you will witness a fascinating and often painful revelation. Boundaries act as a filter for the human soul. When you stop being the available one, you will finally see people for who they truly are. Those who truly value you will adapt. They will respect your space. They might even be relieved that the dynamic is becoming more balanced. But there is another group, the ones who will react with anger. They will call you different. They will tell you that you've changed or that you're being distant and selfish. Pay close attention to these people. They aren't mourning the loss of your friendship. They are mourning the loss of their free labor. They are uncomfortable because you have stopped allowing them to use you as an emotional dumping ground. You didn't change. You just stopped overgiving. And for those who benefited from your lack of boundaries, your self-respect looks a lot like an insult. There is a law in economics that applies perfectly to human psychology. Scarcity creates value. When you are no longer a given, you become a choice. When you finally do speak, your words carry weight. When you finally do show up, people feel chosen. Your presence becomes intentional. It is no longer a default setting. It is a gift. People start to listen more carefully because they know you aren't just talking to hear your own voice. They take your advice more seriously because they know you don't give it to everyone. By protecting your energy, you make it magnetic. People are drawn to those who seem to have a secret world inside them, a world that isn't for sale and isn't open to the public. But the most important change, the one that really matters, isn't what the world thinks of you. It's what you think of yourself. The internal transformation is breathtaking. You feel a sense of calm you haven't known since childhood. You are no longer reactive, jumping like a puppet every time a notification sounds. You are proactive. You begin to choose your interactions based on resonance, not obligation. You protect your peace like it's the most valuable thing you own, because it is. For the first time in years, you aren't a supporting character in everyone else's movie. You are the protagonist of your own life. So, if you're worried that pulling back makes you a bad person, remember this. This isn't about becoming cold, it's about becoming conscious. It's about recognizing that your life force is a sacred, finite resource. Not everyone deserves a front row seat to your journey. Not everyone is entitled to your heart, your ears, or your time. The moment you stop being available to everyone is the moment you finally become available to yourself. And that is when everything truly changes. If this helps, consider to subscribe.